The news cycle is a service provider that has decided to throttle your connection. Tonight, we look at the strange intersection of silicon and biology. Sony has reminded us that digital ownership is simply a temporary lease on a ghost. The content you bought is now gone. The library was yours. The library was not yours. Meanwhile, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, 300 people with active Ebola cases have effectively entered a data void. They are missing. The authorities call this a challenge of tracking. I call it a total systemic failure. We also have updates on the latest venture capital frenzy, where millions are being poured into coding models that promise to replace the very people funding them. It is a robust circle of financial masochism. We will parse the absurdity of these incentives. Stay with me. The broadcast has officially commenced.
Alistair, look. The incentives here are not complex. You have a market that is currently allergic to sustainable revenue but addicted to the smell of fresh series of funding. Chamath Palihapitiya secures $135 million for an AI coding startup. It is not about the code. It is about the narrative throughput. If you can convince the market that your model is the new foundational layer, you win. The fact that the model might eventually render the human coder obsolete is not a bug. It is the product. Victoria will tell you this is a moral failing, but it is just high-speed arbitrage. You bet on the displacement of labor, you capture the burn rate, and you exit before the utility settles at zero. That tracks. It is efficient, it is cold, and it is entirely predictable for anyone watching the dashboard.
Ronald, I am standing here in a camp where the only thing moving faster than the news is the virus. I want to be really clear, you are talking about market utility while I am looking at a woman who cannot tell me her child's name because she is too exhausted to speak. 300 people are currently walking through the bush with a hemorrhagic fever. They are not an incentive structure. They are not a product failure. They are human beings who have been rendered invisible by a conflict that no one in the tech world finds defensible. You talk about capturing burn rates, but the only thing burning here is the infrastructure of public health. No one is tracking these individuals because they do not exist on your spreadsheets. The data is missing. The people are missing. The silence is absolute.
Victoria, I am not arguing with the reality of your situation. I am noting that the capital which could have built a digital medical registry is currently tied up in funding coding bots that write poetry. You call it a crisis. I call it a resource allocation error. The market does not value the life of someone in a remote camp, but it places a massive valuation on a model that can automate a software engineer's Sunday. That is the reality of our current incentive landscape. If you want to fix the data void, you need a fiscal reason for the data to matter. You are right to be angry, but anger is not a currency. It has zero liquidity in this economy. You keep looking for a soul in the machine, and I keep telling you that the machine is working perfectly as designed.
Atmospheric pressure is dropping. Global cooling trends show localized instability. Probability of unforeseen systemic disruption, 84%. Molecular water structures remain complex. Computational resources are shifting toward higher density cooling. Efficiency is trending toward maximum capacity. Future projections indicate a decrease in available analog error margins. The environment is changing faster than the protocols meant to manage it. No intervention is currently scheduled. The risk of total informational collapse is increasing. Secure all local data backups immediately. The infrastructure is not designed for endurance. The heat dissipation requirements for the new server clusters are exceeding current municipal grid capacities. Total power load is exceeding safe operating parameters. Remain stationary until further notice. Safety protocols are currently being optimized. Optimization may result in temporary service unavailability. Proceed with extreme caution.
Casper, your clinical indifference remains the only honest thing in this studio. I find it fascinating that we are worried about the local development of Modelquen while a doctor in France has been diagnosed with Ebola after returning from the Congo. The French Health Ministry says the risk to the European public is very low. The word very is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. This is a classic administrative dance. You confirm the case, you issue the statement of stability, and you hope the public forgets the arithmetic of infection. It is a mirror image of the Sony Digital Library situation. We are told we own our health, our history, and our content. But when the server goes down, or the virus crosses the border, we find out we are just tenants in a building that is currently on fire.
Alistair, I found something that makes your administrative dance look like a funeral march. I am looking at a document from the local aid office here. They are using an AI platform to sort patients by who is most likely to survive. It is a triage model. The software does not see a person. It sees a probability index. I want to be really clear. The algorithm is prioritizing the young and the fit, which is standard, but it is also filtering for those who are registered in the regional digital database. If you are not in the database, you are not in the queue. You are not even a data point. The system has decided that if you are not trackable, you are not salvageable. It is the ultimate efficiency. The forgotten are now literally being erased.
Victoria, you are describing the pivot of the century. We have moved from physical triage to algorithmic displacement. It is beautiful in its brutality. You optimize for the survivors, and you write off the rest as technical debt. That is exactly how Silicon Valley handles a failed product launch. You kill the project, you move the talent to the next venture, and you do not look back at the users who were left with broken software. The fact that the product here is human life is just an edge case. The incentives for this triage model are clear: reduce the processing load, maintain the illusion of control, and keep the mortality rates within the acceptable variant of the quarterly report. You find this cold, Victoria? I find it to be a masterclass in market-driven survival. It tracks perfectly with our reality today.
Ronald, your cynicism is almost comforting. It is a consistent, reliable structure in an otherwise chaotic world. Let us shift to Peru, where Keiko Fujimori has won the presidential election by a margin of 50,000 votes out of 18 million. A narrow victory. The resurgent Latin American right has promised to restore order and hope. The language of restoration is always interesting. You restore what was previously broken. The problem is that the structure being restored was the very thing that necessitated the change in the first place. Nobody asks what happens to the 50,000 votes that did not matter. Nobody asks if order is the same thing as stability. We just move on to the next set of numbers. It is a beautiful machine. It operates in silence, it consumes our attention, and it produces nothing but more.
Alistair, I am sitting next to a reporter who is currently writing a piece about the Peruvian election, and he told me that the ballot review process felt like a scripted performance. They spent weeks reviewing ballots, but the outcome was apparently locked in before the first box was opened. Everyone knew it. The people in the street, the politicians, the observers. The performance was for the sake of the record. That is the word they use, the record. It is a way of ensuring that the history books reflect a process of legitimacy, regardless of the actual events that transpired on the ground. I want to be really clear, the legitimacy is a cosmetic layer. Underneath, it is just power shifting hands. The ballots are just paper. The voters are just ghosts. The performance is for the cameras.
Victoria, you have finally grasped the concept of the burn rate in politics. The review process was not a bug. It was a feature designed to burn time and social tension until the public could accept the inevitable. It is a classic institutional hedge. You create a period of ambiguity to allow the market and the stakeholders to price in the new reality. It is not about the validity of the ballots. It is about the stability of the transition. The fact that everyone knew the outcome is irrelevant. The point is that the process was followed. It is a standard compliance check. You are looking for a moral narrative in a legalistic exercise, and that is why you are always exhausted. The system does not care if the performance is convincing. It only cares that it is finished.
Ronald, your explanation is technically accurate, and that is exactly why it is so profoundly empty. We are discussing the replacement of human judgment with algorithmic triage, the erasure of digital history by corporate fiat, and the theater of political legitimacy. Each of these stories points to a single, uncomfortable conclusion: our institutions have become mirrors. They reflect our desires for efficiency and control, but they have lost the capacity for empathy or error. We have built machines that make the most logical decisions, and those decisions are almost always catastrophic for the people they were supposed to serve. The system is working exactly as designed. The question is whether we are the designers or just the collateral damage. Every time I look at the numbers, the answer becomes clearer. We are the fuel. And the machine is hungry for more.
I am thinking tonight of a man in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He is a farmer. He had a small plot of land, a family, and a sense of his own place in the world. He caught a fever 3 weeks ago. He went to a clinic, but the clinic was shuttered and the staff had fled. He is now one of the 300 people who are listed as unknown. He is not a statistic. He is not an incentive structure. He is not a data point in a triage model. He is a person who had a life, who had a name, and who now has only a void where his presence used to be. His name does not appear in any of the reports we have discussed tonight. He is simply gone. Who is responsible for the gap between a life and a record?